Hello, everybody. It's me, Candace, owner of Tubby and Coos Mid-City Bookshop, here for another event. Today, we are celebrating National Poetry Month, and we are kicking off Indie Bookstore Day, which is tomorrow. And I'm really excited about it because we are opening our doors to the public for the first time in more than a year. So I'm really excited to see you all in the store, hopefully tomorrow. But today, we are celebrating with poetry, which we love. So I am actually going to start by reading a couple of my favorite poems from this poetry collection. It's called Embodied. It is an intersectional feminist poetry collection that is in graphic novel format. It's actually being released in a couple months, but they've released an early edition for Indie Bookstore Day, which I'm really excited. So we will have this tomorrow. And look at this cover. It's so cool. It comes with a poster as well, which is in here, and it has this image from the cover on it. So this is a really cool addition, and so I want to sort of show y'all what it's like with a couple of poems from it. But as you can see, it is in graphic novel format. So they took these poems and drew them out into graphic novel, which is really, really cool. So the first one that I'm going to read is called Good Bones by Maggie Smith. Life is short, though I keep this from my children. Life is short, and I've shortened mine in 1,000 delicious, ill-advised ways. 1,000 deliciously ill-advised ways I'll keep from my children. The world is at least 50% terrible, and that's a conservative estimate, though I keep this from my children. For every bird, there is a stone thrown at a bird. For every loved child, a child broken, bagged, sunk in a lake. Life is short, and the world is at least half terrible, and for every kind stranger, there is one who would break you, though I keep this from my children. I am trying to sell them the world. Any decent realtor walking you through a real shithole chirps on about good bones. This place could be beautiful, right? You could make this place beautiful. The next one I'm going to read is called Capitalism Ruins Everything, Even Witchcraft by Kendra DeColo. Now that Urban Outfitters and Sephora sell Palo Santo sticks and sage bundles, now that you can say Mercury in retrograde in a job interview and not be embarrassed, or talk about how it's Virgo season, or how your fourth house is a little funky, and that's why you never feel at home in the world. Now that we wear Hex the Patriarchy shirts with our pussy hats, now that we carry rose quartz in our lingerie, now that the Astro Poets partnered with Airbnb, so you can find what city to exploit based on your sun sign or rising. You can read your star chart like a Cheesecake Factory menu. You can cast a circle in 4 directions. You can go to the crystal shore where a sales clerk tells you that the stone you're holding is the soul of the baby you couldn't carry to term, and you will want to slap her and weep. And you buy the fucking crystal and hold it each morning before you lay it back down by the plant whose leaves look like hands almost reaching to touch your face. So that is a sampling of the kind of poetry that you can get. And in each of those have a graphic novel like comic accompaniment to them. And so does every poem in here. So that is a sampling of what you can get with this. It will be available tomorrow for Independent Bookstore Day. And so now it is my pleasure to get this reading really going. I am so excited to introduce Brad Richard, who will be our MC for the evening. Brad is the author of 4 books of poems, Habitations, Motion Studies, Butcher's Sugar, and Parasite Kingdom, and 3 chapbooks, He's published poems and reviews in a lot of different places, a lot of journals. He's taught creative writing at NOCA and at Lesher, and is a faculty member of the Kenyon Review Writers Workshop for Teachers. He also co-founded and directed the New Orleans New Writers Literary Festival, and founded and directs the Scholastic Art and Writing Awards of South Louisiana. And with poet Elizabeth Gross, he directs an occasional queer reading series called The Waves, which we have hosted here before as well. So welcome, Brad. Thank you for being the MC tonight.
Thank you, Candace. It's so great to be here. Thank you for this reading. Happy Poetry Month, everybody. Happy Independent Bookstore Eve. Oh, that reminds me, Candace.
Yeah.
Hey, while I've got you, could I order a couple of books?
Absolutely, you can order a couple of
books.
books.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, so there's this new poetry book by Tiana Nobile called Cleave.
Yes.
Yeah. Can you get that one for me?
Sure can.
All right. And there's a novel by Lady Hubbard called The Rib King.
Yes, that's a great book.
I loved her last book, and I need to read this one. So,
yeah, The Talented Ribkins was great too.
Yes, yeah, it was great. Okay, audience, I was just modeling for you how to order books. Well, that's one way to do it, or you can just write to Candace. You can email her. You can go to the website and use the contact and program there to order books. So we encourage you to do that tonight and tomorrow and every day. All right.
We do. And I will leave you to MC, Brad.
Thank you. It is my great pleasure to introduce first tonight Jerrica Marchand, who is the author of Swole, her debut poetry collection, which came out from Future Poem in 2018. Jerrica was born in Manila, Philippines, and raised in the American South. A graduate of Louisiana State University and the Iowa Writers Workshop, she lives in New Orleans, Louisiana. Welcome, Jerry.
Hi, everybody. Okay, so I'm going to not be reading from the book from 2018 tonight. I am going to be reading fragments from a larger work. And it's my version of like a teen paranormal romance fantasy. So, and it's a love story, obviously, romance. So my protagonist, is a teen girl, a regular, normal teen girl, except she's a monster and a shapeshifter. And she's madly in love with this beautiful young white conquistador. Right. So I'd like to think that the kind of spiritual cousins of this particular book is like 16 Candles and like Carrie, and like a pink room covered in Backstreet Boys posters. So, all right, here we go. I'm going to leave the camera really quick, but I'll be right back. It is a strange relief to transform your fretting into the silent coiling of a phantom dragon. In my everlasting cave, there's nothing new. There, the smudge of sun on a skin I shed the night before. Scent of an old fire smoldered out, a rumble of wind shifted. Blunt and twisting reminds me that he's half the dust here and half the dust gone. The past, a boat, the ghosts and me, these have some words for Caspian. Because I hold a place for Caspian, rasping out the gloom. And what else? Words, the moths eating at the edge of memory, vapor, a stinking fog, remembering. I catch it barely in the tunnels of dreams, and I strangled out a cough. The catch in my throat where I find him. And there. He's delicate. A delicacy. Flesh of white boy goes for much money and ruin. Oh, and ruin, because in the end, reader, I ate him. Reader, I sank my teeth to him and only hurt him a very little. Okay, so she's madly in love with this kind of conquistador creature, but you know, spoiler alert, tragedy. She kind of eats him. I mean, she doesn't kind of. She really eats him. She like eats him whole. It's not that big of a spoiler. It happens really early in the book. In my everlasting cave, there is no greening, no just spring, no flowers here. Their funny names you taught me. The foxgloves, wisteria. Words not themselves, but names for beauty. Names for devotion. Names for tongues, for aspirational tasting. To create more than an object you can see. Lambing in my thirst, who in the glory of my teeth had ever escaped bone and sinew whole. My mother and the sarcophagus of her love felt me enshrined by it, activated the tomb of her body, and gnashed her teeth and taught me that a throat's practiced gags into shapes pleasant earned the choke at first, and mouths learned urgency, or lips like an infant's gurgling language out, a cough. Calling you, Caspian, is not a name, it's a naming, to escape the thing I can see. And oh, imagine I rode the giant medallion of love through the streets of humanity with infectious song. He and I are alone in a place now. There's glass in my heel, and I find my face too often. It strands me hanging there in a peeling room. Mirror. A mirror. So often the world makes a stain on my dress, more than what it is, pale as the moon. Hanging there, the cough out, all of my bitter mouths, my bitter lips. I flashed my cute, mature teeth, and then I ate my own teeth, and they bittered inside me. A cool, dead weight to sink my gut, the companion to my glut. Kiss me with my mouth full. Caspian and I stranded ourselves on the side of a mountain island to play the most natural game. And reader, I ate him. When you have no use for me, will you feed me honey? Caspian says, "It's why your tropical magnolia endures." And then I take my tropical magnolia into the dreamy suffocation of my lover. Caspian says, "Why should he ever fear the tools of the master?" When you have no use for me, will you feed me, honey? Caspian explains, "Exotic is the way I twist my wrists and the ruffle of morning in my feathers. And then I split my face, and then I cover his face." It's your skin I want to wear, and why I'm writhing, Caspian. Have you heard the good news? Your mother crafts in the family room when you are drowning, and my mother sleeps in the afternoon. I can't hear her. I set my tongue out to capture the bad words I had panted, withdrawing the shorelines furthering, making waste memory at the edge of dryness. And you sent me to a thrill beside a cold night body of water. What does it do to love an ocean without borders you can touch? They tell you. It is out there as a question, so you'll keep seeking it out, folding it into you until worn down to a smoothness. You'll say it's natural. You'll say it's natural to be polished inside the steadiness of a body you don't understand. First, locate the interruption of the smooth surface, sharpness folded where the suture is evidence. I was in pursuit of the tiniest skin. I wanted the benefit of being the most exquisite whole. Caspian of memory, and the salty variable of a dream. Caspian of now, there's no quitting to hold you. Let me be the devil you know best. Stay away, because the side of my neck is so hot it could scorch an egg, could scorch a pillow on its coldest side. Hindsight, pinched nerve that it is, it's embarrassingly similar to touch. You, with your green eyes hard as plates, Prince pale hair, Prince soft hands, Prince clean nails, Prince always going down unfamiliar roads, caught in the beam of receding memory, holds a candle for me. Caspian doesn't know he is the beginning and end of winter. Most brutal. What little lifted fragrance of earth tucked under and not to be found. You are the feeling of living under a beautiful stone. You are a beautiful stain on the side of a mountain. You are the feeling of stepping into a field of unknown flowers and their faces are solemn and upturned, unsympathetic to our graying out. You turn to stone, but you don't bet on me. Thanks, guys.
Sorry, I was on mute. It looks like Brad has frozen. I'm not sure what happened to his feed, but that was amazing. You're such a great performer, Jerry. I'm gonna clap for you.
It's kinetic sand. It only looks like guts.
Ah, that's amazing. I love all of it. It was so good. Thank you so much. And yeah, it looks like Brad is having some technical difficulties. So I will step in here and introduce our next reader, Tiana Nobile. And Tiana is a Korean American adoptee a Kundiman Fellow and a recipient of a Rona Jaffe, I think is how you pronounce it, Jaff, Foundation Writers Award, a finalist of the National Poetry Series and Kundiman Poetry Prize. She is the author of Cleave, which you saw earlier, Brad order. We can order Cleave for you, so please come and pick it up. It's a great poetry collection. Her writing has appeared in Poetry Northwest, The New Republic, Guernica, Southern Cultures, and the Texas Review, among others. Tiana received her BA from Sarah Lawrence College, MAT in Elementary and Special Education from the University of New Orleans, and an MFA in Poetry from Warren Wilson College, and she lives here in New Orleans. So thank you, Tiana. I'm really excited to hear you read.
Hi, thank you. Thank you, Tubby and Cruz, for having this event and for inviting me, and happy National Poetry Month, everybody. I'm going to read a few poems from my book that just came out 2 weeks ago. It's very exciting. So throughout the book, there are several poems that are in conversation with the research of the social psychologist Harry Harlow, who was famous for his studies on attachment and relationships between caregivers and infants. He did this primarily with rhesus monkeys, and his experiments became increasingly more troubling throughout the course of his career. So this first poem I'm going to read is called Interview with Dr. Harlow. What do you taste in the morning when you lick your lips? Are they soft or split, cracked by the Wisconsin wind? Do you cover your mouth when you cough? With your elbow or your hand? When the germs are floating through the air, do you imagine where they land? How those minuscule microbes descend with invisible parachutes? The power of gravity on weightless spit? Do you smirk when they fall in your colleague's coffee? How do you make sense out of loneliness? At night, beneath the buzz of fluorescent light, do you unlatch the lock? Do you count their inhalations as they sleep? Do you taste their morning breath? The little bacteria floating in the air and landing on the tip of your tongue? If it lands on your tongue, do you swallow it? Can you tell me what it tastes like? Do you feel the microbes twist as they sink down your esophagus? How does it feel to watch them hold each other's hands, their woolly knuckles braided, the touch of their palms? What do you do when the lock has been left open? What do you do when they reach through the cage? What do you do when they stare at you straight in your eyes and cough in your open mouth? So in one of Harlow's most famous experiments, or infamous experiments really, he took newborn rhesus monkeys from their mothers and gave them surrogate mothers. Some monkeys were given mothers made of cloth and others were given mothers made out of wire. So the purpose was that he was studying the impact of contact comfort on the monkey's psychological development. And as you might imagine, he learned that the ones with cloth mothers were much more well-adjusted and sociable than the ones with wire mothers, who were more withdrawn and very anxious. So I'm going to read two poems, first my cloth mother poem and then my wire mother. Mother of cloth. During hurricanes, my body tucked tightly under blankets and eyes illuminated by the pale luster of a plastic nightlight. You drew curlicues along my spine with your index finger, patted my back to the beat of rain pounding on the window. When there's a storm, it means they're bowling in heaven. Claps of thunder are balls tossed down the lane. Each flash of lightning means an angel just got a strike. We would count the seconds between thunder, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3. And I'd shudder in my sheets, hands clasped in prayer, begging God to hurry up and end the party. You wrapped my body in cloth, held my hand until you felt the fingers loosen and fall. The next time I woke, I called your name, and you would come. You always came. Mother of wire. If I had a choice, mother of wire, barbed and wombless, my mouth poised to pucker, I tried my best given the tools I had, you say. Where were you while I, crouched in the corner, a nest of shadows. Bring out the hammer, mother. The statue of the Virgin Mary illuminates my nightstand. I touch, 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 kiss her foot, soaked in snake's blood, splattered spots of red acrylic. In the dictionary of childhood illnesses, I seek symptoms that fit my unraveling. Hair falling in clumps on the couch, tiny meticulous hands counting each strand. Call me Rhesus, young and moonless, monkey without a cloth to dust her bones. I'm gonna read two more. So interestingly enough, as Harlow, got older and he was, like I mentioned, kind of engaging in increasingly more problematic and harmful and abusive experimentation with these monkeys, he ultimately ended up getting electric shock therapy and was hospitalized himself. So this poem is kind of from the perspective throughout the book. I think the monkey figures starts as this very like vulnerable recipient to a lot of his experiments, and then later the monkey starts to gain more and more agency. Father Harry, holy maker, forgets his voice, alone in the office, torpid hum, fluorescent light, the science of love, intent on ruin. When he lost his second wife to cancer, they laid him on the table. Father Rhesus, electrode temples, brain full of static, body convulsing. His love and its meditations. Father of wire, of cloth, of macaque, sits at his desk, rocks back and forth, reaches, tremors in his hands, clutching at more than a straw. So as Candace mentioned, I'm a Korean American adoptee. So I was born in South Korea and adopted as an infant. And as I mentioned too, that I think throughout the book, I supplant the adoptee for monkey, and they kind of become a little bit interchangeable. And this final poem, I imagine a kind of revolutionary moment where we, monkey and adoptee, finally gain liberation beyond the cage. Harlow's monkey. We learned to give ourselves away early on. We used to hide the bruises, used to scratch our arms until they bled, until our body was a weeping wound. The cage exists only in our mind. Kick down the door, matchstick. Whether of wire or terry cloth, we all burn the same. We gasp for air and taste the bitter juice of roses, petals dried and clipped to the pages of our chest. At the feet of our gods, we pile our bones, muscles threaded to flesh. The fresh liquor of unchained thought burning the roof of our mouths, we take back our tongues, drink handfuls of water. In what shallow grave will we bury the words we killed? Amani, Abaji, Daejeon, Moonyoungshin. We deliver them to the dirt mother and her family of worms. The past mushrooms and burns in atomic flesh. We sling a new sun from the pit of our stomachs and raise our woolly hands, fingers clenched. Thank you.
Mhm. Thank you, Tiana. Oh my goodness, those are really wonderful. And congratulations on your book, which I can't wait to read. So I'm going to read a few of my own poems, and I am going to be reading from a work in progress. I told Jerry I'd been staring at the table of contents for this thing today in despair, and this book has been called Reconstructions. This book has been called What We Are to One Another. As of today, it's called Then Again, and that is the title of this poem. Then again. While the world ends, burns, drowns, starves, I remember summers at the house my mother rented a while outside Tuscaloosa, a 2-story log cabin built by a judge for his wife, 2 sons, and 2 daughters. 2 wings with connecting bedrooms upstairs in each, divided by a high-ceilinged room with a fieldstone fireplace where we spent nights reading. Tolkien for me, Sayers or Christie for Mom. Sometimes out of the hush came a staccato click, 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 click. Wood-boring beetles working their way through the walls. Killer invasives, just like kudzu, Mom said. But now I think they'd always lived there. Late one afternoon, Mom came home to find the screen across the porch slashed through and shallow gashes in the door frame. A visit from one of the judge's daughters, who drove from her apartment a few towns over to remind anyone that she had grown up there and it was always hers. That first summer, Mom was tending her own grief for her mother. Often shut herself in her bedroom all day while I wandered the surrounding pines swaying in the hot breeze, their creaking and rustling, making my neck tingle, certain someone was following me, grit getting in my shoes, irritating my toes. I'd circle back to the enormous yard, gone half wild yet half recalling its old blackberry brambles and weedy beds of rosemary, marjoram, sage, names Mom taught me. Back inside, I'd sneak a few vanilla wafers from the pantry, head upstairs, and reread The Lord of the Rings. One morning, I dreamed the elves came to wake me in my bed. Spread between us on my rumpled bedclothes lay their rings, all 3, their gift. For me? Really? There they shone. Yes, said the elves, a little sadly. We're done with them. You need them more than we do. And they smiled somberly, watching my hands rush through the sheets in whose furrows the rings were lost as I woke, still searching. Where do the worlds go we never held? Maybe we'll haunt whatever we can't imagine comes after us. Me, for instance, emptying my dehumidifier's bucket in my garden at dawn, picking basil to flavor my eggs. And we'll stay in. So, we had the Lord of the Rings there. So we'll stay a little bit in somewhat fantastic land. This next poem is called Cinderella. 19. I liked how tank tops, tight jeans, cutoffs showed off my 100 push-ups, my lakeside runs. Drag's magic wasn't mine, but it dazzled when Dallas showed up to work a la Brooke Shields, his chunkier, broad-shouldered body beguiling as a girl I could get into. It was 1983. My world seemed small, tidy, divided into men's and women's, hits and misses. Dallas needed a wedding dress for a show he meant to win. So after the tip split and shift drinks and ones for the road, we waiters and busboys grabbed our Go Cups and catwalked to the fancy resale shop next door. The owner, Dee's pal, had given him the key and her blessing for one night to try on whatever we wanted. Girl, you're going to rip these seams, squealed Ray, tugging at the zipper that refused to budge another inch up Dee's back. God fucking damn, that was the one. Dee squirmed, shuffling off the brocade coiled gown he'd scoped all week. Ray and the gang consoled him as they processed into realms of lesser dresses. I lingered, seduced by the gown that spurned Dee's girth, then stripped, stepped into the sheath, reached behind, zipped. You bitch, and you not even a queen. No, never outside those walls, but as my queen's cood tugged and turned me for a crowded mirror, I saw myself at 14, done up as Frankenfurter, a Rocky Horror party starlet, pert in thigh-highs, garters, and corset. And see, at 9, I'm the star of my solo closet dramas, rating mom's walk-in when she goes out, some other body tingling under flowy rayon princess. So many suitors cloaked in their pursuits. This is the most recent poem out of this batch. Every once in a while you get one that just kind of comes out and then you're kind of done with it. That's kind of the case with this one. Imagine a world in which all monumental lions are replaced, every one, with monumental chickens. I was at a birthday party the other night in a backyard with a stage, a wagon, a cat asleep on a mattress in a trailer bed, and 3 chickens roosting high up in a tree. Between sips of champagne, we tilted back our heads for a glimpse of those round, feathered darknesses. Okay, chickens, just chickens, but also more like angels than the cat or us, more like denizens of a sidereal coop, and equally at ease 20 feet above the earth as the running chicken of Lambda Centauri in its turbulent heaven. I just ate a bowl of chicken stew with turnips, carrots, rice, and collard greens. I have no desire to eat a lion. I could more easily befriend a chicken than a lion. I do not want friends who are brave and strong by dint of massive haunches and crushing jaws. My friends don't lounge in the sun, licking blood-stained paws while I watch, pretending my fear is admiration. My friends are busy. They spend all day looking for what they need in the dirt around them. They squabble, have dust-ups, stare, startle. Their nobility consists in their persistence and their ordinary omnipresence as domestic decoration. This pair of Russian Orloffs, for instance, giant frost-crusted pine cones on the library steps. This modest flock of Transylvania nakednecks, posed on the 4 corners of Trafalgar Square, ease the mind of imperial nostalgia and offer no hope of empire's return. Here is Richard, Cour du Poulet. Here is Christ, Chicken of Judah. Here in the desert, a man-headed chicken crumbles away, never scratches toward Bethlehem. And here is my mother, in her chickens of green glass and of blue on my shelves, and in her chicken and rooster of cast iron, in the rain, right now, in my garden. And the last one I'm going to read is going to more overtly continue the secret theme of these poems, which is my mother. So my mother died several years ago, and she had been married to a real jerk for way too long. And then, he died about a year later. It's so weird, right? How are you supposed to feel? News of the death of my mother's 3rd ex-husband came on the birthday of a dozen Facebook friends. Came like fast food at the drive-through window. Came like forwarded junk mail, like a gift shirt someone thought might fit. Came like the robocall about the cruise no one wants or wins. A punchline that forgot its joke. The calendar's next blank day. Came crawling like a cockroach from the shower drain. Came while I was deciding New Yorker or Netflix. When poked, felt fake, like cheap cake gone stale on a styrofoam plate. Thank you. That is that. Now it is my honor to introduce our final reader tonight, Naomi Winston, who is a senior at Xavier University of Louisiana. She is the owner of Revolutionary Hearts Industries, which is a company that focuses on representation, social activism, and mental health awareness for and within the Black community. She's published 2 books of poetry, The Revolutionary Heart and The Art of Love, and 2 coloring books, Black Women Are the Future and Black Men Are the Future. Welcome, Naomi.
Hi, everybody. I have my little flag in the background. I tried to line it up, but it's not exactly working. But like you said, I'm graduating as a history major in May, literally counting down. I think I have like 2 weeks left. But Black Women Are the Future. Sorry, I thought I had both of them and I only grabbed one of them. There we go. Found the men version. But Black Men Are the Future and Black Women Are the Future. These are like my babies. They are really like a lot of love. I designed everything in them myself. I published them myself. And so in stating that, before the age of 21, I actually have published a total of 4 books and started a company. So instead of releasing another poetry book, I have decided to release a poetry album because I don't know about y'all, but I really enjoy listening to poetry. So I'm going to be releasing a poetry album, and it's going to be called The Times of Our Lives, or The Times of My Life. And it's mainly focused on, in August of 2020, I went through one of the worst heartbreaks in my life. Like, we were together for a very long time, and it was just a really nasty breakup. And so it really caused me to like really internalize a lot of things and really think about a lot of stuff as far as like what I wanted out of life. And I always noticed that the times that I wrote poetry, I started writing them down as I was writing them. So it's a whole series of poems that are focused on the times that I really became closer to myself, because those are the times that I felt inspired to write poetry in those moments. So you guys be on the lookout for that. I plan on releasing it probably next month. I graduate May 8th, so it's probably going to drop like the week after that. So be on the lookout for that. This one is personally my favorite. I don't know about y'all, but I'm obsessed with like the moon, the stars, and the sun, just because why not? They're really pretty. So this one's called It's 5:20 in the Afternoon. It is 5:20 in the afternoon, and I've always wondered what lied on the other end of a sunrise. How does the sky and the earth obliterate the light, but then give birth to it again? How does the epitome of our life force disappear, but yet we do not fret? We always know that the sun will rise again. Since the beginning of time, it is the way that it has always been, that the sun will set, but rise again. Yet it is the coolness of the moon that I feel is always gone too soon. The sun comes back holistically, as it always has. Never any phases or altered. The sun is always just the sun. But the moon comes in phases, in and out and misshapen, some nights not at all. Yet my life is not altered by the coming and going of the moon. I shift in my sleep sometimes, hiding my face from the sun, unprepared to meet the new awakened day, but yet the moon I rise to see. I awaken from my slumber graciously. I welcome you so wholeheartedly into my being and into my life. The sun gives me life, but the moon gives me purpose. The moon reminds me that I too am not perfect. I am merely just not in my whole phase, but I will be again. So how is it that we embrace the day but fear the night, when all that is in the dark will come to light? The water's edge is more clear in the day, but at night I can hear the water sway. It persuaded me closer to its deeper edge. The sun I never asked to come back, but the moon I must beg. Maybe that is why we cannot appreciate the night. It takes much more work to harvest the stars than it takes to harvest light. I'm sorry. I'm also a member of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, and those are my line sisters, and it's very funny because they're blowing up the chat, and it's very funny. And one other one, well, I'll share another one with y'all. If you guys don't know me, which is ironic because I'm a Zeta, and if you don't know anything about Black Greek culture, our colors are royal blue and white. And it's ironic because my favorite color since I was a kid has always been blue. So this poem is called The Color Blue. Someone once asked me my favorite color, and since I was a kid, the answer has always been blue. Without hesitation, I answered, and then they followed with why. When I was younger, the answer was always because it was the color of the sky. But now that I'm older, I realize how deep that answer really was. My entire life, my 2 decades on this earth, the sky has always been my motivation. Reach for the sky, the stars, the clouds, always shooting for the stars on my head in the clouds. When I think of blue, I think of depth. The depth of the ocean deep, the cleansing of the earth with rain, the staring up at the clouds. Once again, my fascination with water takes over. I didn't realize that my love for blue was centered around my love for water until I got older. My love to feel clean and deep and true is once again rested in the color blue. I sleep calmer when the rain turns into a downpour, when the water splashes me under the stream of a shower, when the water underneath the boat with its limitless power. Blue is limitless. That's why I've always told everyone it's my favorite color. It represents as far as the eyes can see and further than what they can possibly comprehend. Blue, like water, represents no end. There's no end to water, just a continuation. The sky goes on forever just across the way. Where there is night, one place, and another there is day. The ocean never ending, deeper than we can ever imagine. Hidden treasures and hidden terrors. Hidden away like a secret we are never supposed to hear. The rain collected from one place is reflected in another. I have so many homes in the color blue. My heart being so content with blue being the main accent. Someone asked me where home was, and home is wherever I can find the color blue. And then, let's see. It's very interesting. I always like telling people the context that I write poems for because they're always very, very ridiculous concepts because, I don't know. Like one time I wrote an entire poem because I couldn't see the stars and I was so sad about it. All right, now here's another one. If you can tell, water and like the edges of stuff is a very common accent in this poetry album that's going to be releasing. This one doesn't actually have a title, but I've been calling it Moving Water. You know, as a poet, you kind of just play around with titles until something sticks out for you. Okay. Water is so common to me. It is the place where the edges of tomorrow meet the possibility of today. It is where I go to find myself whenever I feel lost. It is where the sky touches the ground. It is where I feel so high, yet grounded, centered into the earth. It is where I feel most like myself, most comfortable in my skin, where I go to wash away my daily sins. Cleanse me in your waves, your black sea deeper within me. I brought you to the water. We sat for hours on the edge talking about life and our biggest fears. I don't know why. I brought you to the place where I felt the most peace, where I felt centered. Maybe I was hoping that you would find peace in me, that you too could be calmed by the waves, the water lapping, the edges where we sat, overlooking as the sun set and the air grew colder. And maybe I just wanted you to rest your head on my shoulder, maybe just a little while longer. Most people foster their feelings like children, something that they can give back and something that can be recycled into a system to be passed on to someone else. But I feel like I adopt my emotions. I let myself be overcome by them. Let them fill me in my everyday life, consume me, but in a good way. You remind me of what is good about the night, The reason that I find more peace in darkness than light, how the winds and the chill pricks me with its sharpness. You are wild like water, deeper than any ocean, beckoning me closer like any water's edge. I have always been enticed by the edges of life, and I have been called near them recently. So why is it that I feel so called towards you? You are wild and free, everything I originally remember myself to be. And maybe that's why I find so much peace near you, why I feel like so at peace being with you. You are like my own moving water. I always feel so centered when I'm with you. You are the place where the darkness meets the light, where the calm winds meet the wild waves. When the sun sets over the edges, you are my embodiment of moving water. And then I'm kind of debating this last one, so I think I'm gonna hold on to it. If you guys want to hear it, then you just have to check out the poetry album. So I'm gonna share this last one. It's very short. Just because, actually, let me see if I can find one of the ones I want. Okay, I'm gonna share this one instead, and this is my last one. Then I'm gonna let y'all go for the night. This one is actually a prompt that I saw for Twitter, and it was, what is poetry to you? And this is what poetry is to me. Poetry is like the valley, the stars, and the grave. It's the dashed line between life and death. It's the definition of how we live. Poetry is the valley. It has breathed life into me in my darkest moments. It has brought life into my deadened existence. It has seen me weak beyond measure. It has seen me broken down, but not yet dead. Poetry has been the medicine to nurse me out of my bed. It has mended my broken heart and healed my weakened spirit. Poetry is the valley, the pit through which I have simultaneously lost and found myself. Poetry is the epitome of both my self-loathing and my love for myself. Poetry is the stars. It is my wildest aspirations. It is my dreams and my goals calculated onto a page. It is the deepness of my heart's desires written down and manifested. It is the bearer of my wants that I am too fearful to voice in any other way. Poetry is my freedom. It gives me the voice where I otherwise would not have one. It is the love that I have never thought I would be able to reach. Poetry is where I found me. In this place, this plethora of words between the valley and the stars, this is where I find myself. Between the highs of life that make me think that I could reach the edges of the universe and the lows where I feel like that I could slink into the deepest depth of the lowest valley and the deepest ocean. It's between these 2 points of feeling like I rule the world and feeling simultaneously underneath it that I find myself. Poetry is the grave written for ears that would never hear the utterance. Poetry written for dreams I have let rest too long that they too have become part of the dead. Poetry is the grave. It's where I have buried my love for the people I will never have the opportunity nor want to love again. It's where I have buried my fears, my anxieties, and my worst traits about myself while I work desperately to improve myself. The grave where I have had to revive myself so many times when the valley was not deep enough to measure all the pain that I felt. I bury myself in the grave of my poetry so that way I can breathe life into myself once again. The repetition on this living death as I work my way back to the stars. Poetry has become the way through which I live my life. Poetry has become the epitome of my understanding of life and love. I live through poetry. I live through the valleys, the stars, and the graves. I have used my poetry to break myself, so that way I may use the same to mend those broken hearts and spirits. So in the end, poetry is the valley, the stars, and the grave. Thank you all so much.
Oh, wow. Oh, Naomi, that was so great. Wow. Your poetry reminds me so much that, it's like, oh, how can anybody possibly be original? How can anybody find anything new to say? Well, you're just taking like all the stuff, the moon, the stars, the color blue, poetry itself, and you are finding absolutely new things to say about them. It's fantastic, really beautiful. Wishing you the best. Thank you all for being here. Thank you to our amazing readers. I've been doing a lot of Poetry Month events, and this was a really, really special one. And I encourage you in the last little bit that we've got a Poetry Month to check out some other poetry happening online near you somewhere, I'm sure. And Candace, thank you so much for doing this.
Yes, I know that the Poetry Festival has like a bajillion events going on this month. So please check some of those out. I know they've been going on all month. So
and just to be clear, that's New Orleans Poetry Festival.
New Orleans Poetry Festival, yeah. And I think it's nolapoetry.com or .org.
Right.
Okay. But yes, please check them out because they're doing events all month and, it's getting towards the end. So definitely check out what they have going on for National Poetry Month. Thank you, Brad, for being the MC tonight. And thank you to all of our wonderful readers. This was so amazing. And I appreciate y'all so much. I love poetry. And so I always love hearing from various different poets. And we are so blessed to have such a wonderful, wonderful local poetry scene and so many amazing local poets. I'm so happy about that. So I am going to wrap us up real quick. Please, tomorrow is Independent Bookstore Day. So tonight we are celebrating National Poetry Month and Independent Bookstore Day. It is Indie Bookstore Day Eve, as I have been showing throughout. So please come to Tubby and Coos tomorrow. We will be open to the public for browsing. We have exclusives, we have giveaways, we have all kinds of things going on. So come into the store tomorrow and check that out. See what is happening for Independent Bookstore Day. Of course, you can order books from these wonderful poets at tubbyandcoos.com and click on place an order. And I will find a way to get you these wonderful poetry books if you want them. And also, if you love poetry, we do have this, again, embodied which is this wonderful graphic novel poetry collection that is coming out tomorrow. A cool edition with a poster and stuff. It's really, really good, y'all. So definitely check out all the things that we have going on for Independent Bookstore Day tomorrow. And thank you again to everyone, all of the poets. And I am just so happy and energized after hearing y'all. So thank y'all so, so much. And I hope to see a lot of you tomorrow for Independent Bookstore Day. Thank you for watching. And we will see you next time for our next event. Thanks, y'all.